Hello everyone, I've recently finished my top 100 games of all time, and I thought I'd talk through some stats that I found relatively interesting along the way. Some big jumps, some how many sort of rows, how many new games were in different sections, that sort of things. So let's jump into some stats. In total, there was 26 brand new games in my top 100 this time. So 26 brand new games. Yes, there were some of them which were maybe variants. A key one was like, instead of Azul Summer Pavilion, I'd just put Azul on the list. Very similar vibes, but technically different games. And there were a few that were maybe just outside my top 100 that maybe I'd only played a few times that now had made it. I think Earth being one of those games. There was also 25 games that rose up the list in some form, some maybe only a place or two, others making absolutely giant strides up the list. And all that meant was that 47 games actually fell down the list, and then there was some more that completely fell off the list. So a fair bit of movement in terms of new games, in terms of just shuffling round of and I think partially, as I alluded to going through the list, I think a number of the heavier games dropped down. Say Twilight Imperium, that at one point would have been in my top 10, that's dropped down. Still, I think it was in like the 20s somewhere. But I think some of the heavier games that are just hard to get to the table with less time these days, they've fallen down a little bit. They're still brilliant games, but maybe they're just not getting played as regularly, or unlike in Twilight Imperium, at all at the moment. It's maybe been played once since the last time I made my top 100, which means the memories are still there. It's still a brilliant game, but a brilliant game that I don't necessarily get played, hence it fell. Talking about games falling, the one that fell the most and still remained on the list fell 68 places, and that was Galaxy Trucker. Not the most heavy game, not necessarily the easiest to explain, and I think that's one of the reasons that this one's just not been played as much recently. It's one that if people know how to play Galaxy Trucker, I'm happy to get it to the table, pile up the components and just go for that fun. But trying to explain how it all works when you kind of almost need to have a built ship in front of you to understand how the second half of the game works, to know how you should build your ship in the first place. It just means it's not going to get to the table very regularly anymore. Although it's still a fun game, and like I said, if people around the table knew how to play, I'd get it to the table. But there's definitely people I'm playing more games with recently that don't know, or have maybe only played once, that would need me to explain it. And it's one of those games that needs explaining in two chunks, and you can't take it seriously because half your ship, even if you know how to play, might fall off. So I could see how some people might not like it in their first play. But still, it's in my top 100, a brilliant game, but just harder to get to the table. Conversely, Ghost Blitz rocketed up a 62 place jump. And that's, I think, quite obvious from the heavier games falling. This is a light, quick one that I can get to the table and explain in seconds and just get playing with friends, family. It's a real nice, quick one, this. You're always going to play through the entire deck of cards as you're flipping something over, grabbing something from the middle, and, well, that's basically all you're doing. If you're wrong, you're going to forfeit a card you've already won, and that's the extent of the rules. It's about as light as you can get, but super fun. And I think I've tended more to quick, fast fun that I don't need to waffle on and explain to people. And I think that's where a lot of that shifting round has happened. So just some stats here that I've got in terms of new games to list. How was that distribution sort of balanced throughout the top 100? Well, overall, there was the 26 brand new games, and in the top 75, we'd already gone down to only 17. So quite a chunk. 9 of them had actually happened in that top 25. If we zoom into the top 50, there's only 12 of the new games. So quite a lot of the new games were actually in the upper 50, 100 to 51. Dialing it down again, in the top 25 there was only 6 brand new games. Again, some of those, one of them would have been Azul, which was a Summer Pavilion turned into Azul. In the top 20, we'd already dropped another one, so we're back down to, in the top 20, a quarter of the games in my top 20 were new. Again, some maybe were tweaks, and even in the top 10 there were 2 brand new games in terms of, there was Thunder Road Vendetta and Star Wars Unlimited. I'd say that's quite good in terms of, it shows that actually, yeah, not all of those were brand new games, but it certainly shows that in the last year and a half, 2 years since I've done my previous list, that's not bad going. Gaming is still going strong, right? I'm certainly enjoying them and playing a good amount of games. I think we always want to be playing more games than we are, but there we have it. Some stats just to sort of show how many new games there were, roughly the distribution, which was the biggest loser and winner effectively. But there we have it. There's some stats from my top 100, which hopefully you've watched in its entirety, and if not, probably somewhere on the screen right now there'll be the playlist. 100 fantastic games. Not everyone will be one for you, but you should find out at least some good games to hear and just hear me waffle on about. But there you go, a little bonus thing for my top 100 this time around. And until next time, have a fantastic day gaming.